Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Cool. All right, I'm Bobby Jagelski. I'm the business manager in the Center for Student Involvement. I work with student orgs all across campus to manage their finances and help them make purchases, deposit money, all the fun things that go with that. We'll go through this presentation and it'll talk about kind of tools that are available to treasurers and other students and organizations that are making purchases. Some of the things in here are things we are trying to accomplish. So keep that in mind. If you see something and you think, oh, I want to use that, I'll try to point them out, but there might be a chance that you'll be working on something and it won't exactly line up with what I say. If you guys ever run into any questions, please feel free to email us in the Center for Student Involvement. I'll have a slide at the end that has like our email of where you guys can get help for things like that. The only thing I ask is that if you have any questions, let's save them till the end. I think there's about 20 of you in here now. And I would just hate to kind of get that bogged down. So we'll try to get through it. And if you still have questions at the end, please feel free to ask them once we get through everything. We'll go through the slides entirely, and then we'll actually go through like an actual example to see kind of how things work. So first things first, the student org accounts. The student orgs live within the University of Dayton financial activity chart or chart of accounts. The university did this because since the student organizations are representing the university in a way, they feel that there is an obligation to oversee those and make sure that the purchases are in line with the mission and commitment of the university. All the organizations have a unique faux pas, which we'll get into in a little bit more. All that is a unique string of numbers that tells the university which organization you are and what you're trying to purchase. And that just correlates to the general ledger, which is the university's accounting system, and keeps track of what they have, of what purchases you've made and how much you have in your account. All student organizations must manage their money in accordance with the university spending policies. All that information can be found on 1850. Things to know. So these are kind of the things we'll go through. The role as a treasurer, how to manage your money on 1850, how to make purchases, how to be reimbursed members, other things to know about managing money at the university. And then at the end, there's a couple funding opportunities that are still available to student orgs if your organization is looking for additional money to try to put an event on this semester. So your role as a treasurer is to oversee the management of the financial affairs of the organization. This includes adding transactions to 1850. That includes expenses and deposits, completing purchases or delegating purchases to student members, and reconciling the money in 1850 against account statements. And that can be kind of confusing. What that means is that 1850, the accounting book on 1850, and what the university actually has on its record don't talk to each other. So we try to, throughout the semester, go through and make sure that what you have on 1850 in your student org actually matches what the university says you have. So make sure that your revenue or deposits match, and make sure that your expenses or purchases match, to make sure that you have an accurate picture of what your group has spent. And that's basically leads into managing cash flow, which we just want to make sure that your student organization account has money in it before you try to make a purchase. This always doesn't have to be the case. We understand that through paying dues and fundraisers and stuff, the money may not hit your account in a timely fashion. We just ask that you work with us in the Center for Student Involvement to make sure that if your account's going to go negative, that you let us know so that we can be aware of that. Because if we see that you're trying to spend more than you have in your account, we're going to raise a flag about that and probably reject the order. So just make sure you try to give us a heads up if that's going to happen. So how do you manage your money? On 1850, we'll walk through this. Like I said, after we get through the slides, we'll go through. But 1850 has an accounting book, and it allows you to track 100% of your student org's spending and events and members. It's kind of all encompassing. In that, there's a request to spend, a payment request button, and you just fill that form out and it'll walk you through what information is needed to make which purchase you want, depending on what it is. The student organization financial tool can be found on the accounting book page. And what that does is that'll walk you through step by step how to purchase apparel for your group, how to make a purchase at the grocery for your group, how to reimburse a member of your group if needed. And I'll also show you that as well. And then Runway, we'll talk about, is the university's procurement system. Basically, it's kind of like how they make payments for the university or for organizations and departments at the university. You can do purchase orders, or we can pay after the fact based on like an invoice or billing statement, which can be submitted on Runway. The Center for Student Involvement has purchasing cards that work just like a credit card. These are really good for if there's something you need to purchase that you can't find on Runway. The P cards kind of how you can use those. The only thing with the P cards is we have 3 of them for about 250 student organizations. So if you want to use those, you need to make sure you're planning in advance. If you give us an email or you fill out the form on 1850 less than 24 hours in advance, there's a good chance you won't be able to use it because there's so many other groups that are trying to use that P card at the same time. So just try to plan in advance. If you know you're going to have to buy something, please let us know. And then you're also able to deposit money. And there's different ways you can do this. If you have cash or checks, you can go to St. Mary's. I believe it's room 107. It's the Office of Student Accounts. It's on the first floor of St. Mary's. They have envelopes there. You can fill it out to deposit the money, and they'll get it deposited into your account. Once we see it, we then update 1850 if you don't already do that. But please try to update 1850 so we can be on the lookout for that payment when it comes along. We'll walk through logging in a minute. So all purchases have to go through 1850. This is how we at the university know what your group is trying to purchase. The logic is built into it so that it'll only ask you the information that's necessary. So if you're trying to order apparel, it's not going to ask you travel related questions. We try to keep that as simplified as possible, just so that you're not filling out too much repetitive information. We know it's repetitive, but we've tried to cut it down as much as possible. CSI will communicate the approval and denial and forward any receipts or confirmations. So that's one thing to keep in mind on this. Just because you're able to submit the form doesn't mean it's approved or it's done. We may follow up and have questions, or if we need something, we'll follow up to make sure that we have all the information we need on our end. So just keep that in mind, that when you submit something, just because it says like submission complete, it doesn't mean that it's automatically approved. Like I said, we'll walk through the 1850 demo here in a minute. One thing to keep in mind with that is keep your officers up to date when we send out information such as this training or anything else. We go off those lists. So if those are previous members or old members, just make sure that they're up to date so that the people that need to know about this information are getting this information. So like I mentioned earlier, the FOPAL stands for Fund, Organization, Account, Program, Activity, and Location. When we go through the demo, this will make a little bit more sense, but basically each of your student organizations has a unique fund. And then the rest of that, the OAPAL, just kind of tells the university's accounting system what you're trying to buy. So if you're trying to travel, if you're trying to buy groceries, if you're trying to buy apparel, those are all things that extra string of numbers will kind of tell the university where you're spending your money. Runway, like I mentioned, is the e-procurement system. This is one of those slides that I said we're working to get what's called an advanced shopper role built into there, where if you're the treasurer of your organization, you would be able to spend $250 without having any approval. Unfortunately, we're still in the process of getting that made or built into Runway. So right now, when you send something through Runway, you have to assign the cart to me or Gwen Fox Stump, which is in that tool. And we then review your account to make sure you have the correct amount of funding in there, and then we approve it. The only trouble with this is that if you need something and it's last minute and we're not able to get to that, or we get the email or something saying that you've submitted a cart, it may not get approved for a couple days. So just always, once again, keep that in mind. And an email will go out to all organizations once we're able to get this spending authority, this advanced shopper role built into 1850 or into Runway, excuse me. We'll go through Runway after this. Runway reimbursement. So how we like, in the ideal world, we would like student organizations to first try to make purchases through Runway. At first, it can be kind of difficult to navigate, but hopefully today we'll be able to walk through that. But there is a lot of things to purchase from. A lot of the companies on there have worked out deals with the university. So those are areas that, or they're companies that have been vetted by the university, they're trustworthy and all of that. And that's where the university would like us to start with our spending for student organizations. After that, there is another option is Runway reimbursement, where this usually occurs is, say you're having an event and the event's going on and you notice that you're running low on plates or forks or something simple like that. You send a member of the organization out to buy whatever you need, the forks or plates, and they buy it on their own personal credit card. They bring it back. The event finishes up and then the student wants to be reimbursed. What we can do then is do what's called Runway reimbursement. And we can just have the student that bought the supplies keep their receipt. We submit that on 1850, we process it, and the university sends that student a check for the amount that they spent for the supplies. So that's a good way if you need something last minute and you're afraid to have a member spend money, we can reimburse them, so keep that in mind. The next option, like I mentioned, is the P card. These are good for things that we can't run through Runway. An example is like Jo-Ann Fabrics. So if you need to buy bulk order of fabric to make, I think we had an organization make tie blankets for the Children's Hospital, and they need to buy bulk orders of just fabric to make the tie blankets. That's not something that Runway has currently. So we were able to give the student organization a P card. They went and bought the fabric from Jo-Ann Fabrics. They brought it back with the receipt, and they brought the P card back with the receipt, and we were able to submit that and divert the charge to that student organization's fund. So that's an example of where that can be used. With the P card, you need to make sure that the purchase is tax exempt. So when you go in, you just let the cashier usually know that you're a tax exempt organization, and they will approve it, and they'll deduct the sales tax. So just check your receipt if you use the P card, and we'll remind you when you pick the P card up to check for to remember to check for that. One thing we do advise is to avoid membership stores such as Sam's Club or Costco. The reason for this is that these stores want the organization to have a membership. So if you try to use your family's membership and you go in, they won't allow you to use the tax exempt, because the membership that you went in with is different than the organization you're trying to pay for, if that makes sense. So we just try to avoid those stores because it's usually a hassle to get the tax removed. And it's a lot of the things you can buy there, you can buy at like a Walmart or another giant commercial store. So you also have the ability to deposit money into your student organization account. Examples of the income would be student dues, donations. If your student organization has a fundraiser or like a takeover, we can do that. If your organization works with a university department, such as like the engineering or the math department, something like that. We can do what's called an account transfer, and that's just basically they take it from their fund and transfer it to your fund. And then also if you have an event under normal circumstances that charges an entry fee, we can also collect that entry fee and deposit it into the student org. One thing specifically with deposits is donations. Say you approach a local business and they want to donate $100 to your organization. If they want that donation to be a tax deductible donation, it needs to go through the university's advancement office. The reason for that is, as an organization, you don't have the ability to give out those forms. That's something that the university the advancement office has the capability to do, and it just allows them to track it more easily. It's not a huge difference. The only thing is that you have the company go to go.udayton.edu/give, and on that site they put in their how much they want to donate, and there's a comment section, and they can put the student org's name in there. So if it's the math club, be like $100 donation to the math club and things like that. Once that donation gets collected, it then will be transferred into your group funds on 1850. It'll be visible there. Donations collected by your organization on behalf of other nonprofit organizations should not be deposited. And what this means is if your organization is having an event specifically for another nonprofit organization, what we request is that your organization just direct payment to that company without collecting it through the account. So what we've had in the past is organizations collect money for United Way. They had like a United Way Day of Giving. And what we ask is that you just direct people to the United Way giving page and not put that in your account. It just becomes more of a hassle with collecting it from another group and things like that. What we can do though is we have organizations that collect dues, and then a portion of their dues goes to a nonprofit. We can help you collect those dues and then write a check for the organization that way. We just ask that if you're having an event strictly to collect money for an organization, you work to direct those funds to the organization's national chapter directly and not collect them into your account. If you think that there's like you have an example or something that you may need to work around this, please reach out, like I said, and we will work with you to get that figured out and come up with the best way to do that for everyone. The last one we have there about the being able to go to the box office. With the current pandemic going on, the box office is not open. So you can indicate those donations either at like I mentioned earlier, the Office of Student Accounts on the first floor of St. Mary's, or you can also bring them into the Center for Student Involvement, and they can also help you with depositing not only donations, but membership dues, anything like that. So this is just reviewing that. Transactions can be completed at the Office of Student Accounts. The doors are locked right now, so there are deposit envelopes, and you can either slide it under the door, or I think there's a drop box that you can secure it in. That's good for cash and checks. The deposit envelopes are outside of the bursar's office. Checks should be made out to the University of Dayton /club name. It can also just be the club name, so club softball, math club, anything like that. Just avoid having the student's name directly on it. So if Jane Doe was collecting funds for the math club, don't put Jane Doe on the check, because then it looks like that student's receiving the check. Try to have the club name on there if possible. We can also work with students if you'd like to collect deposits online, so such as club dues, or you want to set up a store to sell merchandise or sell event tickets or something like that. We can help you set that up. Just reach out to the CSI office, and we will help you get all that created and walk through the steps with you. And that also gives us an idea of what sort of online income is coming into student organizations. If everybody goes out and sets up the store on their own, it's kind of hard to track on our end. Whereas if we get a little bit of a heads up, we're able to better predict what's coming and make sure that we're able to move those funds in a more timely manner. So imprinting in OmniSource. Excuse me. So the university has a partnership with a company called OmniSource, and they are the preferred imprinting company of the university. So if your group wants to make t-shirts or jerseys or hoodies, anything like that, we ask that you come to us, and we start with OmniSource. If you feel your organization has an exception where OmniSource isn't able to provide it, or your organization works directly with a group of individuals that would kind of have their own business, please come to us and we will work with you to figure that out with the purchasing department. But for the vast majority of student organizations, OmniSource is where you'll go to use for apparel needs. And what you do with that is when you walk through the financial request, if you indicate that you're purchasing apparel, you'll get this OmniSource form. You'll fill that out. It just gives them a basic idea of what you're looking for: jerseys, hoodies, t-shirts, what color you want, what kind of writing, if there's a design you want. You'll email that to Katie Overhauser. She works here at the university, and she's kind of the point person that talks and discusses with OmniSource different things that our student orgs need. So you just send it to her in that email there. It's also on the OmniSource forum, I believe. So you would email her, she would forward that on to OmniSource, and then an OmniSource representative would contact you directly to work on making sure that the design is what you want, the writing is what you want, the cost is where it needs to be. If you say you want a really elaborate design and it's going to be too much, they could help you either take colors out of the design, or maybe only do a front or a back instead of a front and back. Those are both, ways to save some money on design costs like that. And the best piece of advice they had is to plan ahead. The more time you give them, the better pricing they'll be able to give you, because they can then order more of what you're trying to get in bulk and get a better price from their supplier on that end. One update with the current situation going on in the world is that due to COVID restrictions, student organizations are not permitted to travel at this time. There may be a process coming soon about how to, if you feel that your organization should be able to travel and needs to travel, there may be a way to request that on a case-by-case basis. Once we have more information on that, we will definitely make sure to pass it along. But right now, the restriction is still in place, and student orgs are not allowed to travel at this time. Some other information to be aware of. The University of Dayton is a tax-exempt organization. So like we mentioned earlier, when using the P card, we have tax-exempt status. There's a piece of paper that goes along with that. Anytime you're trying to make a purchase or something, you can, if you let them know we're a tax-exempt organization, they need our 501c3 confirmation, you can reach out to the Center for Student Involvement, and we can pass that along to you to make sure that they're able to get all the documentation they need. This just rolls into the next one. No purchase may have sales tax. And all reimbursement should not include sales tax on the receipt except gas. Under normal circumstances, when you travel and your group reimburse members for gas, that can have tax on it, but other purchases cannot have the tax on it. For gift tax, purchases with unit prices greater than $1 are considered a gift and are taxable to the individual who receives the gift. So this applies to any organization that does like a giveaway. Say your group's doing a bingo night and you're giving away gift cards as a prize. That gift, as long as it's over $1, requires a gift receipt of sorts. And it just basically fills out and says that this is the person receiving the gift. Since it's taxable income for that person, they just give their name and address, I believe. And then the university takes care of making sure that they get their taxable information for that purchase. As long as you indicate on your event or when you create your event on 1850 that you'll be giving away prizes, we will provide you with those gift forms for you to fill out, and you just return them after your event. Do not purchase items that are intended for individual members with the intention of being reimbursed. Simple. And then contract services. Contracts and agreements must be reviewed by CSI. Even though you are student leaders of your organization, you are not allowed to sign a contract because on behalf of your organization, because like we mentioned at the beginning, your organization is representing the university. So the university needs to review those. The only person that has the authority to do that is the executive director of Student Life, which is Amy Lopez Matthews. If you have that situation, just email us and we'll make sure to work with you to get that figured out. So then the last slide we have is funding opportunities, SGA funding. There are opportunities in both semesters, spring and fall. I believe both of those are closed, but special requests are still available. So if your organization is looking for some extra funding, that's a good place to start. And UD late night events are also, UD late night grants, are also available through the Center for Student Involvement. I believe you can get between $1,200 and $1,500 for your for an event. It just has to follow these 3 requirements. It needs to be open to all students between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and be drug and alcohol free. So that's a great way if you're looking for extra funding for an event that your org wants to put on. Both of those are great opportunities. And if you have any questions, the best place to start is student orgs money at udane.edu. So let's stop sharing here for a second. I'm going to pull up what we talked about in there on 1850 and so on. All right, so this is 1850. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. If in case you're not, once you log into 1850, you'll be brought to this page. You can then click this groups menu and select your group. For our purposes, we're going to use this UD late night as our test one. Along the left here, you have all your navigation tiles. You want to go to money, it'll automatically open the accounting book. And on this page, you'll see what your group's revenue is. So how much your account, how much money you've brought into your account, how much you've expensed, and then what the balance is. This is nice because you can see if SGA gives you money, if you apply for one of those UD late night grants, they'll add a line in here and it'll tell you how much you received from there as well. The one confusing thing that we know exists and confuses a lot of student leaders when they look at this is that there's a group funds 20-2021 and then just another group funds down here. The reason that there's 2 of these is that this grayish one is its own line, and this one up here we have created as a budget. And the budget one is nice because we're able to roll that into the next year and we're able to keep that information. Whereas the group funds, it's more difficult to do and we're not able to save the information as much. So we found it easier to just put everything in an allocation line, and it streamlines the process a little bit. It makes it a little bit more confusing. We're working with the provider of this software to get this line kind of removed or just where it's not available so it's less confusing. But for right now, it is right there. And that's just the main difference is you're going to want to use this group funds 2021. So when you get to this page, it'll tell you, like we said, the revenue, the expenses. So if your group wants to make a purchase and you don't know where to start, every student orgs page has this blue box at the very top and it says Student Organization Financial Management Tool. If you click on this, it'll bring you to this. This tool was built by our office in conjunction with a couple of other departments on campus. And what it does is it'll walk you through everything you need to know about the financial financial transactions here at the university. So if you need to make a purchase, you need to check your student organization account or funding balance. You want to request SGA funds. You want to deposit money. You want to collect dues online, or you just need your FOPAL for some sort of, if you work with facilities, on campus, they will just ask you for your FOPAL string. And you can receive that right here. So on this tool, let's walk through an example of, say you want to make a purchase. When you click on this, it'll then ask you what kind of funding you want to use. So if you want to use your organizational funds, like I mentioned, if you're working with a department and they want to give you funding, you can click that. Funds awarded to you by Pepsi or funds awarded to you by SGA. So for this example, we'll go through the organizational funds. On here, you'll then select the name of your student organization so that it'll give you the FOPAL string that we spoke of earlier and adjust it to your organization specifically. So let me show you one example real quick. So if you go to click on your group and you get this box, has a department-sponsored university account, please let us know and we'll work with you to figure that out. If you think your organization has its own fund, we can work with you, and that may just be something on the back end where we haven't had it updated yet. Most organizations, I'll say, won't have this screen, but like I said, if you do, let us know and we'll work with you. So you don't have to worry about that. But then for any other group, let's go with Math Club. It'll then ask you to check this number. And as long as you're working with the same student organization, these numbers will 90% of the time not change. This number right here will not change if you're using your student organization's group fund. So this first string of 6 numbers will be the same depending on what your student organization is. That's how we know which fund is yours. So once you review that, you'll check, say this is correct, and then you can decide what you want to do. Are you trying to make a purchase? Are you trying to request a reimbursement for travel? Or are you trying to get a reimbursement for another expense? So for this example, we'll go through make a purchase. And we want to, let's say we just want to buy other goods and supplies. So then all the purchases of goods and supplies should go through Runway when possible. You'll log into Runway. That brings you to this screen. That would just log you into Runway, which looks like this. And on here, these are what they call the showcase or companies that the university partners with. These are really nice because if you click on it, say we go to Home Depot, it'll bring you up to this page, and you can either do a delivery or an in-store pickup. We can select that. And then it brings you up to something that's just like the Home Depot website. So say you need to purchase something. Let's say that we're doing, let's just say we're doing a giveaway of some kind, and we're going to give away cleaning supplies. Say your group wants to give away a broom. And you just come over here, you select what quantity you want, and you hit add to shopping cart. And just like shopping online, it'll come to your cart here. And then once you have everything you want, you hit continue, or you hit checkout. And it brings you back to the 1850, or excuse me, to the Runway page. And you're able to continue using this tool here in a way. So I kind of skipped a couple steps to just walking through that, but like we mentioned, there's the showcase. If your vendor's not there, you can then click this button, and then it'll ask you to search and say, I can't find a supplier in Runway. If you're unable to find it, sorry, let me go back to this slide. The nice thing is make sure you read these boxes, because if you click on it, it can also provide you a way of how to search for suppliers in Runway. So if you're If your supplier isn't on this screen, you can still search it. There's hundreds and thousands probably of companies in Runway, and you can search for those on this side. Under suppliers, you can hit search for a supplier, and you can check it. A lot of the national headquarters of companies are in here. So Delta Sigma Pi was one I worked with a couple of weeks ago. So I searched that. You can see on here that's got a check mark. You can click, and they are active. And so if you say your organization needed to pay national dues or needed to send a check to somebody, as long as they're in Runway, we can pay them. Even if they're not in Runway, we can find a way to get them in. It's just them filling out some simple paperwork, which you can request to them through through Runway. So, and once again, if you're still not able to find it, I can't find a supplier in Runway. This will walk you through what you need to do to find those organizations and the next steps you can take. So there's that. Let me go back through here real quick, and let me choose an example. So let's say we needed to buy food for our organization. We wanted to just buy some simple bags of chips for an event. So that's not catering, obviously. It's not off-campus catering. So you would click on this. It would then tell you how to get the purchasing card like we talked about. And it walks you through the steps on here of request payment and going through there. So like I said, this is the tool where I would say 95% of the time it can walk you through exactly what you want to do. Just think about what you're entering and just take it step by step. What I'm going to do now is jump back to 1850 to show you the how to make that payment request. Like I mentioned, if you go, we are on the accounting book that shows you your balance. If you go to the budgeting tab, you can scroll down and you can see which budgets your organization has set up. It'll tell you how much funding you have, how much you've been approved for, and you can go from there. Right here is this request payment button. This is where you'll initiate your purchases for your student org. So you just click on that. It brings up this form so you can just say what you're trying to do. Are you trying to make a purchase, a reimbursement, or a deposit? So let's say we're trying to make a purchase, just a test amount for this, and it's going to be for $50. One area to be alert of is so you have this from allocated and from the group funds. Even if you're spending money out of your group funds, make sure you use the from allocated line. This uses that group funds line that we don't have, or that we don't use, excuse me, but it's visible still. I know that's confusing. If you do use it by accident, we'll be able to change it. But if you use it and you go back to your accounting book, it's going to look like you have a negative balance. And we don't want anybody to freak out or think that they're in the negative. So just try to remember to use that from allocated line. These are optional areas, but if you know who the vendor is that you're paying for, type it in there. And if there's any sort of note you want to leave, you can also put it in there. Once you click next there, it'll then bring up this form. If you have a note you want to leave us, you can leave it there. But then you just select which group you're with. We'll say we're with Math Club, since that's the example we've been using. We want to use our group funds. And we're going to make a purchase. We want to, like we mentioned earlier, we want to use, let's say we want to buy other goods and supplies. We're going to want to use the P card to go to a store. So we select P card, we click next. And it'll just ask us, are you trying to make an online purchase or an in-store purchase? If you're trying to purchase something online, so buy, on Amazon, bestbuy.com, anything like that, we can work with you to get that purchase made, so that all you do is then pick it up. If you click on that, like we said, these questions will appear and it'll give you a form that you can fill out with what item you want how many you want, the quantity, and then a link, and we can help you purchase that. Either we can purchase it in the office, or we can have you come in and help us purchase it if there's some sort of circumstance where that needs to occur. But for this example, we're just going to hit in store. You just give a phone number, and so you can just do that. And you can then say no to GFS. You can give us an idea. We'd like you to plan ahead so that you have an idea of how much you're spending at the store. So we're going to go to Kroger, and like we said, we're going to spend $50. Which date and time? So let's say we wanted this for next Monday, and we're going to pick it up at 10 a.m. Enter that. You initial saying that you are aware that you are responsible for your purchases. Click next. Just once again that you are going to follow all policies and procedures, and that you're basically abiding by what we talked about here in this area today. You do the same thing there, initial. You submit. And so it says submitting successful. This is what I talked about earlier, where it will still say a pending approval on here. So just because it's submitted doesn't mean that you have a card reserved on next Monday at 10 a.m. You'll receive an email from that student org's money email that confirms it, or it may say, sorry, we don't have a card available at that time. What is another date and time that works for you? And we will work with you to try to get that made, that time arranged in so that you can make your purchase. But other than that, I think that that is all that we have to show for everybody today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to stick around. Just be aware there, like I mentioned, there is 22 of you in here, so we'll try to go through them one by one. But does anybody have any questions?
I have a sort of situational question.
Yeah, go for it.
So if we have a member do a personal buying, like, you know, we're having a luncheon and we realize we don't have enough napkins or whatever, and they go out and buy that, how do we advise them to go about doing the tax exempt purchasing of that item so that we can later reimburse them?
Great question. What we would recommend is when you register your event, just let us know and we can give you that tax exempt form in advance. And it's just a piece of paper that says University of Dayton, it's tax exempt, and it's signed by our director of purchasing. And you can just have that on hand. And if somebody needs to go make a purchase, if they just take that with them, that's the easiest way to get that done, is so that they can show the store that they're tax exempt.
I have a question about the apparel. I was wondering how you get to the OmniSource form to fill that out.
Yes. So I'll pull up my screen here. That's a great question. So once you're back on the, so we're back in the accounting book here. If you do the budgeting and you go to the request payment, pick whoever. If that organization's here, this isn't going to affect your information, just so you know. But you come to here and you say you want to make a purchase. And when you click on the imprinting items or apparel, you click next, and it asks you what you're trying to do. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to mess that up. To Joseph, who's asking if this will be, if you'll be able to access this recording after the meeting. Yes, there will be a link that goes out to all the treasurers afterwards, discussing everything we talked about in this meeting. So if you go back to this financial management tool that we talked about being located right there, you can click make the purchase, your fund, and then you want to make a purchase. on this screen, you hit imprinting items and apparel. So it says that, and you can click here. And this will bring you up all of the apparel options and things available to you. That's not right. They may be in the process of switching this over to Runway, but there's also the quote form on here. So once you go through, you click the buying and printing items and apparel, the quote form, and you just give them all your contact information. The item list should be on here. I'm not sure why this isn't available. I'll be sure to send out a link to this once I figure out why this is not available at this time. But you can go through, and it usually has items on this page of what sweatshirts, t-shirts are available. And once you get through that, you give them an item SKUs, size that you're thinking, color, logo request, imprinting items. And you just fill that out corresponding to which item you're looking to get. And then at the very bottom here, it says submit forms to Dayton@omni.cc. And then once you get that, you'll receive a quote, and that's what you upload on that form that we had for on 1850.
It makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
If anybody else has a question, they're welcome to ask, or if anybody else is, you guys can also leave at this time if you want, if you don't have any other questions.
I have a logistical question.
Go for it.
So me, and I think she already left, another one of the officers for our organization, Studio Theater, we're not tagged as treasurers in 1850. Will we still be able to receive this information? All the links and Zoom recordings you send out?
The treasurers are who we typically send that to.
Okay, should we just ask him to forward it to us then?
Yes, we can do that, or I can also send it to the list of people that were in this meeting today. So I'll try to do that as well so that you're able to get it.
All right, thank you very much. I know it's a little weird. We just both got recently elected, so they haven't shuffled everything around yet.
That's okay. That's all right. We understand. So thank you for letting me know, and I'll make sure to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good
You're
afternoon.
welcome.